What is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about how you guys are going to want to deal with bye weeks in your 2022 best ball drafts. Inside today's video, we'll be covering 4 key talking points about this topic. The first being the difference between redraft and best ball when it comes to how you want to be looking at the bye weeks. The next topic is going to be how bye weeks affect the quarterback and the tight end position, and the final talking points are going to be talking about how you want to deal with bye weeks in the early rounds of the draft, and then we're going to close out by talking about how you want to deal with bye weeks in terms of the end, the later rounds of your draft. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help us out a ton. And if you would like to follow me on Twitter, please do so at Notorious FNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Like I said a couple of seconds ago, the first topic to discuss of today's video is going to be the difference between redraft and best ball when it comes to bye weeks. So in your redraft league, your normal fantasy football draft, I am not really looking at the bye weeks at all. It is really only important if you're going to be drafting multiple quarterbacks or multiple tight ends. Now, in a normal 1 quarterback draft, I'm probably only going to be drafting 1 quarterback in a redraft league because I don't feel like wasting a roster position on a backup quarterback. If that quarterback ends up being a bust, they end up not working out, then I can just cut that quarterback or cut another player on my roster and go ahead and add a second quarterback, or when I need to fill in for that bye week, I can do that. Same thing goes with the tight end, unless, of course, you don't feel super confident in your first tight end, then maybe you want to draft 2 tight ends. But in most redraft leagues, the people who have been playing fantasy football for a while, I would say most of their strategy is to draft just 1 quarterback and 1 tight end. So if you do have to draft 2 quarterbacks, 2 tight ends, that's when you want to look at the bye weeks, because of course you don't want to have 2 quarterbacks on the same bye week, because then when you're in week 7 without either quarterback, you're basically screwed. So in redrafts, really, the only positions that the bye week actually matter is quarterback and tight end. And I am barely taking into account bye weeks at running back and wide receiver, since my team will be vastly different when I get to when bye weeks start, because you can be making trades and you're going to be adding and cutting people from your roster through the waiver wire as the weeks go on. So if you're active on the waiver wire, you don't even have to be some crazy trader for your team to look vastly different from week 1 till you get to the bye for your players in, say, week 6 or 7. Your team is going to look a lot different. Whereas in your best ball drafts, there is no waivers, there is no trading. So your team is what it was when you drafted it in June, July, August. Whenever you draft this team, early September, it is going to be the exact same. So you can't go on the waiver wire and add people. So you have to look at the bye weeks a lot more, in my opinion, when you're doing a best ball draft compared to your normal redraft fantasy football draft. Now we'll move into the second topic of today's video, which is how bye weeks affect the quarterback and tight end position in your best ball draft. So quarterback and tight ends, kind of like I talked about in redraft just before, and as well as talking about best ball, these are really the only 2 positions where you have to care at all about the bye week. Since you need 1 quarterback and 1 tight end every single week, they are the positions where you want to be drafting at least 2 quarterbacks and 2 tight ends, and you want to make sure that you have them on different bye weeks, because you don't want to have your team get to week 7, week 8, and not have a quarterback at all, because that is going to most likely destroy any chance you had of going to the playoffs in these underdog drafts, right? To elevating your team to potentially taking down a gigantic prize pool because you went ahead and just drafted 2 tight ends with bye week 7. You don't want to be doing that. Now, normally, I am someone who is going to draft just 2 quarterbacks or just 2 tight ends. Now, there is definitely a difference if you want to draft 3 tight ends or 3 quarterbacks, then maybe in that situation, you can draft 2 with the same bye week. But even if that is the situation where you're drafting 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends, I am probably still going to try to get 3 quarterbacks or 3 tight ends that all have different bye weeks, unless the value is just incorrect in that situation. And what that means is that you're just drafting a quarterback because his bye week is different for your third quarterback, and not because the value is really there for that player. So taking a worse player because of the bye week is not necessarily something I'm looking to do if I am drafting 3 of those positions. If that's my second quarterback and I'm only rocking with 2, then I may want to be taking that value fall off. So moving on through the video, we'll next move into early rounds. What I'm thinking about bye weeks in the early rounds is I'm not thinking at all about the bye weeks. During the first 4, 5, 6 rounds of the draft, I'm not looking at bye weeks at all. I don't care because I want to be drafting the best players available. If my first 4 or 5 picks are all bye week number 9, while that would suck because in bye 9, your team's probably going to be taking a gigantic hit, it is what it is because there are the late rounds that can correct for that. If your first 2 wide receivers or running backs have the same bye week, it's going to be okay because you can make up for that later on in the draft. So early on, I'm drafting based upon value. I'm drafting based upon the stacks that I want to compile. I'm not worrying at all about the bye weeks. I don't give a shit about the bye weeks in the early rounds of the draft. Later on in the draft is where the bye week. Before we get on into talking about the final talking point of today's video, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends, our sponsor of today's video, and that is Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the best place, the single best place to play fantasy football this summer. The Best Ball Mania 3 tournament has $10 million in total prize money. All you got to do is draft your team, and that's it. There's no waivers, no trades, and no in-season management. Underdog will give you the best score each week of the season, and the highest score at the end of the year will be winning. The best part about fantasy football, in my opinion, is the draft. Now you don't have to worry about calling up Jim from the office and trying to make a trade. You don't have to worry about the waiver wire every Tuesday night, pulling your fucking hair out, trying to sift through 100 teams waiver wire, right? You don't have to do that. You just draft your team and that's it. You can follow the team throughout the whole season. You can go ahead and look on their page and look at your teams, follow them, or you can just set it and forget it. Draft your team, forget about it, show back up in January when the season's over, and look at how your teams did. Last year's Best Ball Mania champion drafted their team in June. Right now it's July, so there's really no need to wait until August like you may be doing in your normal redraft leagues. Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100 when you sign up using promo code AWESEMO. That is AWESEMO, and that is good for 4 entries into the Best Ball Mania 3 tournament. Head on over to UnderdogFantasy.com or in the App Store, or just click on the link in the video description down below and sign up with promo code AWESEMO today. Again, promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. It's also probably in the pinned comment as well. So make sure you guys check out Underdog. That is where I am doing a ton of drafts this off season. So the final kind of talking point to discuss in today's video is going to be late round draft strategy. Now, this is where bye weeks really start to come into account. This is where bye weeks really start to matter. If you drafted 2 running backs early on that have bye week 7 again, you can just push that to the side. It is what it is. But now you need to make sure that by week 7 is accounted for and you don't just draft 5 more fucking wide receivers that are all on bye week 7 and then you're just shit out of luck and you legitimately are basically completely fucking over any chance you had of potentially winning this tournament. By doing that, you need to make sure that you have more than enough options every single week at each position. Now, injuries are going to happen, and in my opinion, when I'm going into a fantasy football draft, these best ball drafts, I'm just going to assume that in order to win, most of these guys are going to stay healthy. Now, injuries are going to happen. It is very unlikely that throughout the whole season, this roster you constructed is just magically going to be perfectly fine. No one's going to get hurt, right? I don't think that's going to happen, but you have to kind of go into the draft assuming that. And you want to make sure that if injuries do happen, that you have outs every single week, especially at quarterback and tight end. You want to make sure that if you drafted Mahomes early on, you make sure the second quarterback you draft doesn't have the exact same bye week as Patrick Mahomes. Now, again, some of the things I've talked about in today's video make perfect sense. They are no-brainers. But when you look deep into these things, I think this video is going to really help you, especially if you are typically just a redraft player who doesn't really tend to look too much at the bye weeks, because again, in redraft leagues, you really don't have to give a shit about the bye weeks at all because things will change. You'll cut a player, you'll trade for a player, half your team gets traded away in a trade. Things like that happen. Players get hurt. But you have to understand in best ball how much more important it is to look at the bye weeks. And if you are someone who isn't as great on the computer or the phone at looking at the bye weeks, keeping in touch with your team, maybe you just want to write it down. This is something that I have found a lot of success with, even in my redraft leagues. Just write the teams down, write down the bye weeks so that you don't have to constantly be clicking on things all over the place. I understand it's easy to use Underdog. It really is. But if you want to guarantee the fact that you're not going to accidentally fuck something up if you're not as great with computers, and, this is my job. I'm pretty solid with computers, and I still think writing it down helps me out a ton. So if you guys have any questions in the comment section about dealing with bye weeks in your best ball drafts, let me know down below in the comment section, because I love talking to you guys in the comment section. I love trying to help you guys out. I hope you guys do have a great rest of your guys' day. Make sure you do use promo code AWESEMO when you sign up to Underdog. Promo code AWESEMO, again, for that $100 first match deposit bonus. I love you guys all so much. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day. And as always, good boy.